right, so late last week, the little news story dropped this little nugget that the MLS idea, St. Louis becoming an expansion team for the Major League Soccer, is not as crazy as they thought. It's actually on life support. Could it actually happen? Patrick Toohey joins us, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute. Patrick Toohey, thanks for joining us on the Big 550 KTRS.
Good morning. It's my pleasure.
So this isn't just back line, front line, and who's going to play goalie. This is there was already propositions that were passed by the city for all sorts of things. So how do we go and how do we get a MLS stadium here in St. Louis?
Well, that's a great question, and I tried to look up as many soccer metaphors as possible before speaking to you this morning.
Right.
I've got nothing.
You're offsides, so there you go.
This is just a bad idea that won't die. Maybe a horror film is a better idea. I understand that the people of St. Louis would love to have a Major League Soccer franchise. That would be wonderful. That's not the question. The question is, what is it we're going to have to pay for? Mm-hmm. And that's always the question. You know, your spouse comes home and says, look, I bought a brand new car. It's in the driveway. Your first question is, oh, my God, what did you spend? And I think the people of St. Louis are very right to be skeptical of what's being asked of them because too often cities are being asked to cough up tax dollars to support the programs owned by very, very wealthy people.
But at this point, we don't know anything about how this new proposal is going to look.
That's right. The story in the paper pretty much said, here's something we don't know anything about. So, you know, the governor's office says, you know, we're in talks. The mayor has confirmed that there are some talks, but nobody knows if there are going to be any expansion teams. We don't know who else is in the running. And of course, we don't know where St. Louis is in the running. So, again, this seems to be the kind of thing that Amazon does to cities, that Boeing did to Missouri, which is you show a little leg and you see how desperately are we going to fall over ourselves to hand them a bunch of money.
Now, in fairness, you're right. That's how it's gone in the past. The Rams left St. Louis and went to L.A. L.A. didn't give them a nickel, and so Stan Kroenke's building his own stadium.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. If it's something where the state just donates the land or gives them the land or, maybe fixes a couple of exits, maybe, rearranges a couple of streets, maybe some plumbing, right? You would be all right with that, right?
I would have to see what the value of that land is.
Right.
And why can't we just sell it on the open market? The question is if soccer players, if athletes, and if owners want to make a great deal of money in St. Louis, if they think it's a good market, if they think this expanding there is a good idea, why do taxpayers have to pay the bill? Mm-hmm. Why do we have to divert money away from schools and away from police? Last I checked, the state of Missouri and certainly the city of St. Louis aren't flush with cash.
Right. Well, yeah, but if presumably they're not going to give them, land that is valuable. They're going to give them land that, isn't very valuable because we know the city of St. Louis has a lot of land that's just lying around.
Again, it's a matter of what does the whole package look like, and the frustrating part of all these conversations is that basically very wealthy franchises or very wealthy sports teams come to cities and say, "Gosh, we just can't afford this," and of course they can afford it. Absolutely, they can afford it. They're going to make all the money on the back end.
Well,
maybe what they should say to St. Louis is, give us a little bit up front to help us with the investment, maybe get some taxes or regulations out of our way, and we'll give you a little bit on the back end. We'll give you a percentage.
Yeah.
That would be at least a better deal. But that's never what we get.
We'll have to wait.
What we get is take all the risk, and you'll see none of the reward.
We'll have to see how it all works out because, we're both of us are talking out of our ears because we don't know what the proposal is. We're talking about, past arguments. So with that being said, Patrick Toohey, two things. One, the city of St. Louis voted against building a stadium, but voted in favor of the taxes to go to the stadium.
Yeah.
So would they have to go to another vote of the people to build a stadium in the city?
That's a good question. I imagine they would have. I don't know.
Yeah.
If they voted for the taxes but not for the particular plan, I'm sure there are plenty of very smart lawyers who are working their way through ordinances and statutes trying to make sure that any money collected goes to the franchises.
Right. And then lastly, and this is sort of a bigger question, Patrick Toohey, because in theory, I agree with you. But I was reading a story over the weekend that Denver is booming, right? Every day there's another story of businesses coming into Denver and these high-tech businesses and all these other, and each one of these businesses are getting tax subsidies from the state government. And while great, right, we're not giving away tax subsidies. We're cutting off our nose to spite our face. And so it would be good to disarm, right? But you can't unilaterally disarm because other states are then going to steal all of your jobs.
That is a common argument. And basically what that argument is, look, everybody else is doing stupid things. We have to do stupid things too. And it just doesn't work. St. Louis is not going to, and Kansas City is not going to be able to compete with Denver. They've got a different population. They're wealthier. They are a destination, no matter what we tell ourselves. What Kansas City and St. Louis have to do is figure out what are our competitive advantages, what makes us different than cities around us, and play up those things. But if we're trying to spend money like Chicago and New York and Portland and Denver, we're never going to win that game.
Patrick Toohey, more on the website, showmeinstitute.org, and he is the Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute. Patrick, have a good week. Thanks.
Thank you.